I'm just gonna go off video for like 5 minutes to grab a quick bite to eat. I apologize, but I'm here. Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Mary.
Yep.
Hi, Miriam.
All right, welcome everyone to our July 1st meeting of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. We can start off with a roll call of just making sure everybody of whoever's here. Everybody out and they can say whether they're present. Hamilton Soriano. Oh,
Present.
do I need to, can I just go around and call everybody, right?
Yeah, that's good. We'll do the info after. You're good.
Okay, yeah. Hamilton Soriano.
Present.
Becca Meekins.
Here.
Virginia Sims George.
Present.
Mary Leach.
Present.
Deidre Writing.
Present.
Lauren Bailey Jones.
Present.
And I, Mariam Ibrahimi, am also present. All right. And then we have our little thing that Becca shares with us about online meetings.
Yes. So, okay, pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law June 16, 2021, this meeting will be conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted. This meeting will be live streamed, but will have no option for public participation. To view or listen only, please visit the live stream YouTube link available on our agenda on the town's website.
All right. Our first thing on the agenda is to approve our June 3rd, 2021 meeting minutes. So we just need a motion to approve.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All right. Moved by Deidre and seconded by Lauren. All right, do a roll call vote on that. Hamilton Soriano.
I will abstain.
Becca Meekins.
Hi.
Virginia Sims George.
Was this the one where we had the rec department?
No.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. That's right.
Yes.
I wrote
Present.
them. I'm sorry. It is those minutes. Yes.
I approve.
All right,
Thanks.
Mary Leach.
I need to abstain.
Deidre Writing.
Aye.
Lauren Bailey Jones.
Aye.
And then I will abstain. That is approved, right? Yes. All right. And then our next thing on the agenda is our guest speakers. We're having Liz from the Senior Center, who's the director of the Senior Center, and then Jen, who's the library director. This is a series of us inviting people from the community to speak to them about how we can work with them and support diversity and inclusion in our town. Yeah, so we'll be speaking with them and asking them questions. Do you want to bring them in?
All right. I'm going to bring them both in. I'm going to bring them in together. So we're not just sticking one of them in the waiting room. Hi, Jen and Liz.
Hi. Hi guys, thanks for joining us at our committee meeting. I guess I can give you guys a chance to sort of introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about your work in your spaces. Yeah.
Great.
Jen, if you want to start.
Sure. So hi, everybody. My name is Jen Bruno, and I've been here it's been right about 6 months at Northborough. It's been an interesting 6 months, changing jobs in a pandemic, trying to get to know everybody. And thank you for having me here. This is really great. Let's see. What would you like to know about our work?
Sure. So we are sort of meeting with people in our community and different aspects of our community. We've met with the rec department, we've met with people from the YMCA, or the Y, sorry, and sort of talking about how we can work together to either have programs that can help our community or create more spaces for diversity and inclusion. Some of the questions we've asked, those are some of the questions that we've asked. We'd love to hear about programs that have happened in the library or the senior center that you think that we could work with you guys, or programs that you haven't been able to do that we could support you in, etc.
Sure. So I know libraries have had a lot of conversations in the last, I would say 5 years, but specifically in the last year, about how we can help facilitate conversations, both within our communities and also within our profession. So some of the things that we've been talking about here in Northborough is bringing in more speakers and hosting more conversations that will help people understand other cultures, increase people's comfort level in having conversations. I think a lot of people aren't even really sure where to start. So that's, one of the things that we're addressing. And then we're also looking at our space, our virtual space, our policies. Sorry, I think I'm getting a bit of feedback. You can hear me okay? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're sort of looking at, what are our policies? Are we creating the space that people feel safe in to have these conversations? Is our collection up to speed in terms of, is it current? Is it diverse? Is it representative of our community? One of the things that we are really excited about, I think it's in about 12 days on the 13th, we're hosting a virtual author in collaboration with 5 other area libraries. So we're bringing in Joel Christian Gill, who, if you're not familiar with him, he writes and draws a lot of graphic novels, and they're all focused on telling stories with a specific emphasis on Black history narratives that people may not have ever heard of. So we're really excited about that, and the partnership that we've built with the other libraries in the area helped to make that affordable. So his speaking fee is fairly high, but between the 6 of us, it was much more affordable, and he was great and gave us a pretty big discount as well. We're talking to the Chinese Cultural Center to bring in some different programming in the fall when we finally return to in-person programming, which will, I think, really help us reconnect everybody, since there's been so much that has happened in a year while everybody is separated. I think a lot of things have been on people's minds that they really haven't had the opportunity to process and connect with their neighbors about. So we're really hoping to bring in some different book talks, different clubs, and just host as many speakers as we can. And some of our longer term things that we're looking at are sort of a little more granular, maybe not so interesting as some of our talks, but for example, we use the Dewey Decimal System for our classification of books, and we have some labeling and some stickers that are maybe not, they're well-intentioned, but maybe don't convey the right thing that we're going for. So for example, Demco sells a sticker labeled diversity. What is that? That could be almost anything. And the unintended effect of that is that you're just othering entire parts of your collection. Some of the issues that we have with the Dewey Decimal System are related to how we classify things. So how people would find books in our library. The system was created a long time ago, and is really, really centered on very narrow viewpoint that maybe hasn't adapted so well to the world. So for example, there's a whole section of religion, which is the number 200. So 200 through 299 is everything related to religion, but 200 to about 289 is Christian. And then 290 to 299 is everything else that exists in the world. So it may not be the best system to help facilitate people finding books in our collection. They use a lot of outdated terms. So the way that people find things, they would have to search for a term that we now know to be offensive, that we no longer use, or that reflects some stereotypes that we are trying to move away from. So those are the things that we're looking at. On a broader level, we're just trying to build a culture where all of us who work in the library are starting with, before we make any decisions, okay, what are our underlying assumptions here? Are there unintended consequences? So before we enact a new policy or continue to do something, we're looking at things that have been done for a long time. For example, just today we were having a discussion about our library card application, which has a gender question, which says male, female, other. Probably not the best choice, and gender is not even a requirement for getting a library card. So we've removed it. We put a preferred name option in place. So if somebody has a preferred name that is not their legal name on their license, we can use that so that when we address somebody, when their account is up, we can address them properly by a name that they would like to be called by. That is the name that they use. So things like that. And we're running into a lot of times somebody will say, why are we doing this? And we all step back and say, because this is how we did it 15 years ago. Let's do this differently. So that's sort of the mindset that we're trying to create, in the hopes that, you know, little things like small changes will eventually add up to a bigger, broader change.
Could you repeat the date of the speaker that you're having?
July 13th.
What time?
7 p.m. And if you go onto our library webpage, right on the homepage is the link to register.
Super. Thank you.
Yeah, I really encourage everybody to listen to him. I heard him through the New England Library Association. We had him as a speaker. He's amazing.
That's great to hear. I, for one, love the library, and pre-pandemic went to events at the library or even meetings at the library all the time. So I'm happy to hear such events are, you know, resuming. And it's something that I didn't think about, the Dewey Decimal System. It's something that needed to be looked at and revised, I think, as I think a lot of things need to be. But I think with our goal of inviting you guys here, and I'll ask both of you this, just how can we support you in your work, and how can we advocate for you? Because what we want to do is gather research and data and figure out, here are all the things that we need in our community, and so that we can bring it forward to Board of Selectmen and talk to them about it. So that is my question to you mainly, as well as hearing about what you're doing, but how can we support you?
So one of the things that came to mind for me immediately was, if you have any feedback in terms of how we can improve our hiring process and how to broaden our reach. And it is, I would say, a problem that is throughout our entire profession, but we tend to be very heavy on the cis, white, female, middle class in terms of staff. And it's something that we have very much struggled with, which I believe points to some blind spots that, you know, we're overlooking something, because we've been trying to change that for a long time. And I'm not sure that we've made enough progress to really satisfy me. So if, as you are doing your different meetings, if things come up and you have any feedback on how that can be improved, we're certainly open to that. In terms of training, we could all certainly, I think, benefit from any bias training, anything that discusses cultural blind spots, stereotypes, assumptions, problematic language, things like that. I think even if we've sort of been through some of it, we could definitely benefit from any kind of training similar to that. And certainly if you hear anything about the library that could be improved to make it a more welcoming and open place for people, then we would certainly love to hear it.
Along those lines, have you heard anything from your other libraries and other communities that maybe something that you'd like to adopt here in Northborough?
I think the biggest thing that we have discussed that came from some of my colleagues. So I'm tied into a group called the Abolitionist Library Association, which talks a lot about divestment from police, not in the sense of all cops are bad, but just in the sense of we don't have adequate training. So we frequently rely on the police for things that we don't need to call the police for. So bringing in some training, like some smart, aware training on how to diffuse situations and how to sort of identify when somebody is actually a criminal threat versus when somebody might be agitated because, say, their blood sugar is too high, too low. Maybe there's a substance use disorder element to an interaction. Maybe we are not trained in handling people who are neurodivergent, things like that. So that's one thing that that group has really focused on, in addition to, we call it ditching Dewey. A lot of libraries are moving away from that. We are in a really early phase. I mean, I've been here for just about 6 months. We're all aware that Dewey is problematic and we'd like to move away from it, but I'm not sure what the cost impact and the time investment is going to be on a project like that, because it does involve touching every single book that we own in our collection, which is quite a few, and recataloging it in our computer system and putting a new sticker on it. So there may be a funding element to that, but I won't necessarily know exactly what that timeline looks like, but that's definitely something on our radar because there's a lot of clear studies that have come out that, people who have moved away from that system find that their customers are having a better experience with their collection.
Jen, oh, go ahead, Dawn.
It's a different topic. So Becca, do you want to go? Is it something related?
I do have a Dewey. I'm just curious. The Dewey Decimal System. Like I learned it. You're introduced to it when you're a child. So what are the alternatives out there? What are they? Are they like entire systems that people are adopting that are just different ways of doing it? What's it look like?
Yep, the most popular one that people are moving to right now is BIASC, I believe, which is a fancy acronym for something I couldn't tell you right now, but it's known as the bookstore model. So it's a lot more flexible. You can actually suggest changes to subject headings. So as language evolves and as our understanding of the impact of our language evolves, it's much easier to make changes to that system. So it's a lot more fluid, and it takes into account a broader worldview than Dewey, whereas Dewey is very like, America is 3/4 of it, and then everything else is over here. So that's the one, some libraries have gone away from that completely and have come up with their own system. I really am not all about reinventing the wheel. So if we were to leave Dewey, then it would be that bookstore model that we would go with.
And I have one more follow-up question to that is, Jen, how are you?
How are you?
Good, good. Nice to see you again. Just obviously being the treasurer of the board, I would say, what is an undertaking of that sort cost? Like, have you heard from other libraries what it would cost to do something like that?
I haven't, unfortunately, been able to get quite that far yet. We wanted to get through reopening and then see what the summer reading brought in terms of what kind of time we had. So we will probably be starting a little bit more research on that probably in the next 2 months, I would say. So I will have better figures for you after, but I think it's mostly a time investment because everything would have to be recatalogued. So whatever the hourly rate of the staff is, plus a nominal fee for the re-stickering. So I would say it would only be probably a couple $1,000s for the actual supplies that we would need, but it would just be that time investment.
Do you know if there have been, I mean, it sounds like you haven't done a ton of research, so I don't want to put a ton of pressure on you, but is it like something a consultant could do, like where you could hire a firm that would come in and do it, you know, for, I mean, I don't know. It's honestly, touching every book in a library sounds
Terrifying.
daunting to me. So I'm just curious. I mean, I think this is something that we would definitely want you to keep in touch with us about and thinking about proposing projects, because we have thoughts of projects, things that may not happen in the next year, but things that should be put on a capital plan or a longer term plan to keep, you know, in mind over the next few years, particularly if there's a significant financial impact. So I think, you know, it's definitely something that as you get more information, you know, keep us in the loop about it.
Yep. I think one of the libraries that I spoke to did their switch over in sections so that it was a little less daunting. And what they did was they used library science interns because there are a lot more online programs than they used to be. And so internships traditionally tended to be right around the physical school. But now, you know, I have a staff member who goes to the University of Kentucky online. So, you know, when they're looking for internships in their local area, it's a little bit harder for these schools to find partnerships. So when you reach out from a library and say, if there's somebody in the area that is looking for an internship, here's a project that we're working on, they are getting class credit and earning, you know, something towards their degree. They're getting, you know, a mentorship, some real world experience. They're doing something concrete and useful. And we're getting a bit of a cost savings. So that's probably the avenue that I would look at. I know that consultants by contrast are very expensive. So there may be a firm that does it, but this may be like a better avenue.
Yeah.
So Jen, I have a couple of questions. How are you publicizing your events?
Right now, we have a newsletter that goes out through email to our subscribers. Constant Contact. We have our events page on our website, Facebook, Instagram. We do have a printed calendar for our children's events. I'm trying to think of what else we do. And with bigger things, I will send out a press release to the local newspapers and any media outlet to see if they will, you know, if there's interest.
The other question I have is, have you, I know you've only been here 6 months, and with the pandemic, you may not have had an opportunity to meet other organizations in town that you might be able to partner with. Have you had an opportunity to do that?
On a very limited basis. it is something that I would like to focus on a bit more now that things have sort of opened up and the vaccine is more widely available and people are kind of meeting face to face. I came in, I think, at a time when everybody was a little zoomed out. So I've had, Liz and I obviously have met and spoken, and I've talked to Valeria from the church across the street. And I cannot think of the name of the church, but it's the one across the street. Yes, thank you. And the Rotary Club. And so I've started relationship building, and I really hope to be able to focus a little bit more on that as the months go by.
I think might be a good idea. You might be able to partner with some of them to put on more activities as well.
Absolutely.
So Jen, so Virginia's question sort of ties into something that we've been talking about a little bit with the school district about sort of reinvigorating this idea of a lyceum, having these educational events for the community to learn and grow. And so I don't even know if this is a question, or I guess it's more of a comment that, the school district has really been focusing on this recently, the past few months. And so that could be a potential avenue for partnership in the future.
Thank you. I'm going to write that down.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Jen, have you spoken to anybody from the schools about that
No.
particular? No? Okay.
And not yet. I'm bumping that up on my priority list, though.
Jen, you mentioned training for your staff. What is the training like now that you have, if any?
Right now, we haven't really, I think they did a lot of training online through the Mass Library Association when the pandemic first started. But I think it's kind of fallen off. I think everybody was kind of ready for a little bit of a Zoom break. But the CW Mars network, which is the network that our library belongs to, we formed a social justice committee, which I think I'm the co-chair of it, and it's been about maybe 8 months. So what we've been working on is partnering with the Mass Board of Library Commissioners to bring in some staff training that focuses on DEI work and some of the training that I mentioned. So they're starting to make some of that available, and through the Mass Library systems. I should say we have 2 sort of different boards that work on staff trainings. So they're starting to bring in some speakers that are free and available for staff. And as things come up, my staff are taking advantage of it. There's a lot going on through the New England Library Association. I might have had something to do with that. Like, why don't we focus on this? Which fills kind of 2 needs, but that's coming up in the fall. There's a whole day of different staff trainings that will be available related to the same conversations. And things pop up. I think one good thing that the pandemic brought was it's much easier now when things happen to be responsive and say, okay, we're going to push out, let's have an open discussion about something that just happened. So when Dr. Seuss, when the estate made the announcement that they were pulling publication of 3 different titles, we could kind of respond immediately and provide space for librarians even just to have those discussions about what the impact is and what people are asking, and what to do from there and how to respond to it.
I have a question. Jen, you mentioned you had concerns with recruiting, or you were looking for some guidance or input on recruiting. And certainly I think we've kind of heard a common theme across the board in town that everyone is kind of struggling with recruiting a diverse staff or administration. So what are you doing? What resources are you tapping into for your recruiting efforts, and how can we help you?
So right at the moment, I've been fortunate. I've only had to fill 2 vacancies, which were library page positions, which we didn't need to advertise too widely. Those tend to be our high school students, and we have a pretty good feeder program through our teen advisory board. And we do advertise at the school. In general, since I came from Boylston, I imagine that the avenues for recruitment when there was for a higher position would be similar. We have an MBLC jobs board. Again, that's the Mass Board of Library Commissioners. That is where the majority of people who are looking for library jobs end up. And then I'm guessing that there's some traditional avenues for the town when there's an opening to publicize that on the website and to push out. So I don't know if it's so much where we're posting it or if it's the job description. I know that in Boylston, we were having some issues with recruitment and just finding somebody that met the minimum qualifications for the positions. And we made some changes and got a lot better response. So some things that we took off were like we had a requirement, and I think a lot of library positions have this. I've seen it in a lot of job descriptions, must be able to lift 20 pounds, push, pull up to 100 pounds. And that refers to book carts, which the majority of our staff don't push a heavy cart full of books. I mean, I think somebody at one point put like, this is the maximum weight that a book cart can hold. Let's put that on our job description and not hire anybody that can't do it. You know, things like, you know, a lot of the physical requirements are not actually necessary, right? But they're on there, and it does tend to shy people away.
Do you have to be a resident?
I'm sorry?
Do you have to be a resident of Northborough?
You do not. I, in fact, live in Connecticut. So I think it makes sense to hire people who know the area, who are familiar with the area, but at the same time, that in itself can be problematic because you have somebody who maybe just moved from another state or another country, and you know, it gets tricky, right? You want people who have the capability of understanding the community, but you don't want to limit yourself to people who already, you know, live in the community.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
You touched upon this just a little bit, but I'm curious about what kinds of opportunities you have for young people and what that kind of involvement is.
So one of the things that I've always been big on in my career is giving people their first experience with a professional job, or in a lot of cases, their first job in general. We, in fact, just hired a page a few months ago. This is her first job. She's still in high school. We really love to approach it as a mentorship opportunity and a learning opportunity. So, you know, the patience and empathy and coming at it from a place of understanding. We try not to look too hard at, okay, this person has no job experience. You know, of course they wouldn't. This is, you know, especially with our page positions, it is very entry level. We're aware of that, and we like to try to reserve those positions for somebody entering the workforce. In terms of longer term career development, and again, I can speak to my experience a little bit more in Boylston just because I was there for a number of years. I really enjoyed hiring people that in a sense were not necessarily going to stay with me, to provide them the library experience that they needed, because those jobs are also very hard to get. So the higher up you go, the fewer opportunities there are. So I approach everything as trying to understand what the person's career goals are and how I can get them to the next level, regardless of whether it's, you know, within my organization or somewhere else in the profession. I'm not put off by having to train somebody, like I said, I really enjoy the coaching aspect, the mentoring aspect, and allowing somebody the room to make mistakes without fear of consequences. To an extent, we look at things as learning experiences, and I try to create open communication and an environment where if you make a mistake, you can tell me, and we'll talk about it, and we'll move forward, and we'll learn from it. So yeah, I feel like I'm rambling. This is really fun for me.
No, that's okay. Everything you've shared has been really helpful in allowing us to sort of understand your work, and you touched on a lot of important aspects of conversations that we've had with other people in the community as well. So I guess we can ask of Liz the same couple questions that we've asked you, kind of talk about what you do in your space and what disparities you see and how we can support that or advocate for that and work with you on that.
Sure. Thank you. And I apologize for everybody here. I was able to hide from my children, but not the cat right now. So I agree wholeheartedly with a lot of Jen's points that she made here tonight. Jen, you're awesome at your job. Thank you for being here. First, I guess I would like to start with touching on the training that we go through at the Senior Center. We are mainly programming for seniors, but a lot of what we do is also social services. Jocelyn, our outreach worker, is a MSW, a master's in social work. So a lot of our training comes through the social work route, where we have continuing education credits constantly that need to be kept up. So we do have a lot of different topics that we train on. Most recently, the Executive Office of Elder Affairs teamed up with Boston University CADER program to make LGBTQ plus sensitivity training mandatory for everyone in the Council on Aging world and the ASAP world, which is Aging Services Access Point. So it's kind of like our sister organization on the private side of things. So that's been a huge step for us. That just came out actually this week. For other trainings, we do a lot of disability sensitivity training. All of our staff are currently trained on dementia and how to interact with people who have dementia or any type of memory loss. And that extends to our drivers as well. So all of our office staff are trained in dementia, and our van drivers are also trained specifically in that. And they also have specific disability sensitivity training as well. In terms of our building and our physical space, one of the first things I did when I came on board about 15 months ago was make sure that our space is completely welcoming and friendly for everyone who walks through the doors, no matter who you are. So things like putting a pride flag on the bookshelf and making sure all the staff office doors have, we did the progressive pride flag on all the office doors, just to let people know that they are in a safe space and they can come talk to us about anything that comes to mind. We also, our building is completely accessible if you have any sort of disability. We have wheelchair height countertops. We have accessible doorways. Our vans are accessible as well if you have any disability. We're working on trying to secure grant funds to do an accessible walking path around the outside of the building. I think maybe Allie Lane talked to you about that when she was speaking with you. So we're trying to reach as many people as we can, because we are the senior center, but we also want to be kind of a hub for the community. If you want to know anything about aging, we want you to feel comfortable coming to us to talk about that. So some of the programs that we've done recently that we're pretty proud of is, let's see, in this just in June, we had a Pride celebration. We had a program that we called Pronouns and Pastries, which we had an LGBTQ specialist come in and just be available to casually answer questions about whatever someone might not feel comfortable asking a friend or a family member. They could ask this expert. Her name was Julie from Bay Path Elder Services. She's fantastic. We pre-pandemic did cultural meals in the evenings, and we tried out a couple different cultures. Unfortunately, I missed all of them because it was before my time, but I heard they were very successful. We're working on right now putting together some more cultural meals and cooking classes for anyone who would like to participate. And so far on the roster for, I think it's August, we have, I believe it's Japanese cooking class. And then we also have someone coming in to teach us how to make baklava that's cultural for them. And that's what we're up to right now. I'll mimic what Jen said about diversity of staff and looking for some more training, unconscious bias, and just diversity in general, just training. You can never go wrong with more training for staff. So happy to answer any questions, and I just spit out a lot of information at you.
You shared some great stuff about some events that you were having and things that you look forward to having for your staff, like more training. I don't know if anybody has any questions in particular.
I don't have a question, but I want to thank you for all the work you're doing. The community that you serve is incredibly challenging and takes really special people to serve them. So I thank you for all that you're doing. It's really commendable. So thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say, I think that a lot of people out there might have certain assumptions that people over a certain age might not agree with certain things or lifestyles and this and that. And I've found so far nothing but open minds and willingness to learn. So I've had a great experience so far in our community.
Liz, sort of similar to what I brought up in talking with Jen, I know the school district really is passionate about making connections with the community. Are there any such programs? Again, I know you joined during the pandemic as well, correct? So
yeah,
I know life has probably been a little bit different since you joined, but any maybe past programs that are connecting the youth and the seniors in our community, or maybe hopes to do so?
Yeah, we've actually done some really neat stuff over the pandemic, and I have the community action program at the high school to thank for that. They reached out to me. I think their advisor is Eileen Cronin at the schools. So the community action program got together throughout the pandemic and created all kinds of different either craft projects or to-go bags of fun, entertaining things for seniors to come pick up from us and take home. So we did like a flower pot and flower bulb bag for Mother's Day. They did handmade soaps and handmade hand sanitizers for a self-care kit. And we also have a student through that program who does birthday cards, handmade birthday cards for us that we mail out each month. Sometimes we mail out as many as like 80 birthday cards to seniors in our community every month. We also have 2 students at the high school who are doing, I call it like a graphic arts internship where they're creating, on cable the kind of filler slides that just show information in between the programs. They create those for our different events and activities coming up, and they send those over to cable for us. So that's been really nice. We've done things with the Tiger Scout Den. They did some plantings for us. We had an Eagle Scout come and make planter boxes for us outside. And a Girl Scout troop came and completely redid all of our outdoor patio planters and made some upcycled glass bottle watering systems for those. So we've been trying to reach the younger crowd and do as many intergenerational things as possible, because I think that's just so important to, I know we're a senior center and we mainly do things for seniors, but where do you define senior? AARP says it's 50 plus, and Elder Affairs says it's 60 plus, and then there's some programs where you have to be 65 plus. But I think having access to mixing ages is hugely beneficial to everyone.
So Liz, I want to echo Barry's appreciation for all that you've done. I know during the pandemic, you were reaching out to many of our seniors, making sure that they were doing okay and not needing anything. Would you talk, are you serving meals full now or just doing the luncheons?
So we are doing lunches Monday through Thursday, 12 to 1. We're averaging about 25 meals a day. Our highest meal day was 42 people. Our lowest was 6, and that was the second day we were open. But we had recently a chicken barbecue where we had 118 people come pick up meals or sit and eat them at the senior center. And one thing I did forget to mention about creating the welcoming atmosphere. One of the first things I did when I came on board was add a diversity and inclusion statement to our newsletter, and made sure to include everyone in all forms of uniqueness within that statement. And it's right on the inside cover, right when you open that booklet. So just to put it out there.
It's on the second page as when you open the book up and everything. Are you going to have meals at night anytime soon?
We're working on figuring out how to make that happen.
Because
I know that
think it
was
would be
very
great
popular.
for the committee to invite the committee to come and to see, because you also have students working they were working at night, helping to set the table and wait on people and different things like that. So yeah. You
That's
do a
right.
lot.
Yeah, my the bistro staff was reminding me today that because we're slowly bringing all our volunteers back in and kind of ramping up in a slow manner, kind of controlled manner. But they reminded me that there's a church group in town that provides a whole bunch of volunteers. I think they call themselves the Divas. I can't remember which church they're from though. And actually, even today, we had a volunteer who was a grandmother, and she brought her 10-year-old granddaughter in with her, and she was waiting tables so fast. It was so fun to have just that intergenerational component. It's just great. It's good for the soul.
Is it anything we can help with as the center?
No, I was thinking about that while Jen was talking, and I'm thinking about programming. And like, I personally do all the programming for the senior center, and my worldview is, my experience. So I would love if anybody had, or anybody comes across anything interesting in their own worldviews, to send it my way for ideas or inspiration, because I'm always looking for something that's outside of my purview, something just totally different that I would have ever thought of myself. So I'm always open to ideas or suggestions.
Liz, where do you get where do you get your ideas for programming? Is it generally like your colleagues, or you just think of stuff?
Colleagues, and just thinking of hot topics, and then searching and Google searching what's out there. Sometimes I look at like what libraries are doing, because libraries are pretty cutting edge when it comes to like speakers, and speakers are very popular at the senior centers. But yeah, it's just kind of, you just have to get creative.
What is the, you all were working with the, with this lady who did the program. You weren't here 2 years ago at this theater in Clinton about gay, lesbian, and how, you know, what happened to people in the government when they start to reveal that they were gay, they were fired, they were different. It was a really great program that you all helped to sponsor.
Mm.
And I do know you do things along those lines as well.
Yeah, I wasn't obviously there for that one, but my previous town, we did this really great series with the Council of Churches in the town, where we did a screening of the film Gen Silent, which is about that topic, and had a speaker come in and do an LGBT Q&A for the group. And that room was packed. That was probably 20, 25 people. And that's a pretty good turnout for like a speaker series.
I know you've done, the center has done work in that area. So, yeah.
Liz, do you have any connections to the LGBT Aging Project in Boston? Okay.
Yeah.
Because they would be a great resource. I mean, they're doing like really, you know, they're the research arm of Fenway Health, and, you know, it's all about LGBTQ aging. And I know that for a while they were looking into facilitating putting together some housing, like exclusively LGBTQ housing for seniors. And as of like a year ago, maybe they had secured a location. So I'm just, you know, I just think that would be a good resource for you in terms of like,
I'm on their mailing list, their email list. Trying to think, I haven't seen anything about the housing recently, but what a cool concept.
Yeah, and I know they have like they do like meal sites. I forgot what they're called, but they have like sites all over, I think, the greater Boston area, where they do like weekly meals for LGBTQ seniors and things like that.
They do one in Marlboro at that new off of 290 where they built those apartments, because yeah.
Is that the Pathways Cafe?
Huh?
Pathways Cafe?
I think it is. And I think the Assabet students really do the meals as well.
I think that's in collaboration with Framingham State.
Yes,
that
I
one.
think so.
Or Assabet too. I have to look into that a little more.
But
Yeah,
there is something, and maybe I know there's something happening, Becca. Maybe I can also share that with the committee. I can do some research on that and share with the committee. Super. Good to see you, Liz.
Good to see you.
Thank you, guys. I'd just say that if you have questions or think of things that you know, either want to share or would like the committee's input on, don't ever hesitate to reach out. You know, we're more than willing to provide any input. And we will likely, as we get closer to putting together our recommendations, we'll probably reach out, you know, and just clarify a few things based on our discussion here tonight. But appreciate you guys making yourselves available late on this first day of the new fiscal year.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for inviting us.
Yes, thank you for coming. This was great.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
Thank you for
Have a nice,
participating.
Thank you.
Have a
nice
good night.
holidays.
You too.
All right. That was great. I personally think I got a lot of insight into the kind of work that they're doing. And wasn't even aware of some of the work that they were doing. So that was really helpful. I guess the last thing on our agenda is any other business. If anybody wants to discuss anything else during this meeting.
I had a question about, so Becca gave a really nice report out last time we met on the work that she's been doing. Are we rotating around on different groups of us reporting out on what we've been working on, or not really? I think I missed a meeting when that was discussed. So I just wanted to make sure I'm not up to report out. Like, that's the main thing. But other than that, like, do we have something on schedule for next time we meet?
I think we were just, some of us were discussing some, the things that we've been working on. So we just said we'd come and share it at the meeting. You aren't up for anything unless you want to.
Okay.
Not scheduled for the next meeting. But yeah, I think that was just some of the work we were doing. And so, for example, like a couple meetings ago, I shared a little bit about the community outreach aspect. That was it.
And our meeting with the Board of Selectmen is the 19th. Is that correct? I think it's Monday the 19th. So we have one more meeting to sort of get everything squared away before our preliminary. I mean, this is more of an update meeting from what I understand. It's not like, hey, these are our recommendations, but here's what we've been working on. Here's who we've been talking to.
Right.
And our meeting with the Board of Selectmen, are we all going to be there? So I think I was talking a little bit to Jason, the chair of the Board of Selectmen, and he was saying that I don't believe he thought that all of us were going to be there. It was just going to be a couple representatives from the group. So maybe we can touch upon that if it's going to be all of us that are present for that.
That'd be good.
Sounded like Tim maybe wants to take the reins of putting together some type of presentation. And then I think if we want to be in the audience.
Well, anybody can attend, the meeting is open.
Mhm.
And if we want to attend, we could all attend and then support whomever would be given the report out. We could do that. Correct, Becca?
Yeah, anybody can participate as a
Member of the public.
An attendee. Yeah,
Yeah.
I could think of the Zoom word. That's the
Yeah.
Zoom word. I will. I'll reach out to the chair just to confirm what his expectation is. I do. A pretty strong part of me thinks it may be beneficial for us to be there and to see the board and let them see us and hear us. And the community, the people that are tuning into the board meeting. I do think there's some benefit there, particularly because we haven't had any meetings yet where we're interacting with the public. But I will touch base with the chair and talk to Tim. And so at the next meeting, we'll have an answer on what the expectation is for our committee going into the meeting on the 19th.
And they have decided to resume Zoom meetings?
They're still, they're on Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll be remote.
I did have another comment, but does anyone have any follow-ups to Board of Selectmen before I move on? So I do know that there's been some talk in town about a local business who has been experiencing some, I guess, canceled orders based on their stance of supporting the diversity in town, specifically during Pride Month. So I guess it's more just a comment. I really do think that our work is really important. And I think that us getting, all these things we're talking about of things that we can do better in our community, they need to happen. And I'm so glad that we're doing this work. And it's unfortunate, that businesses and people in town are having to go through those things. I don't know if I don't think there's a solution right now that we can necessarily do anything, but even just talking to the senior center and the library. I think that's a really good start. So I just sort of wanted to bring that up too.
Yeah, I through the Northborough Moms Facebook page, that was brought to my attention as well. I don't know, did you see that post as well, Lauren? I don't know if anybody copied you. Did you actually read the comments on that post? I can share them with the committee, but they were pretty detailed, and it definitely stemmed from the story about a local business. We don't have all the facts, so we can't validate what actually occurred. But the base of I don't know if everybody's aware of what happened, but it's basically that this local business was, I wouldn't say targeted, but lost business because they supported the gay community. And then the story was written and it was published. And then there were people that felt that the town of Northborough, the community, we have not done a good job. The voices that I was hearing, that we, even as a committee, haven't done a good job of really addressing the LGBTQ community concerns, needs, increased awareness, and so on and so forth. So I also wanted to bring it up tonight. I did raise it with Becca and Miriam and Tim, and shared with them the post. So there were a couple of people who offline approached me on it and asked if we would respond, because the committee was referenced in the comments, and they weren't the most positive about the committee. But we're going to get that. People don't understand what we're doing in these meetings. They haven't participated. They haven't obviously watched the recordings. They haven't read our minutes, so they don't know the work that we're working on. But I think it might be an opportunity to help people get a little bit of a glimpse into what we're working on, and that the LGBTQ mission is part of our mission. We are addressing that as well. And Becca has always done such a superb job of making sure that it is a top priority, because it is. They also made reference to the survey, feeling that it was really only one single lens on race and that it didn't address the LGBTQ community. So I did talk with Shika a little bit, because she's also Northborough Moms, and she had some really good points on how we can perhaps respond to that. So I wanted to talk to you guys and see if you wanted to come up with a response. I can share the comments over email and we can do that, or I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are, but.
So Mary, I'm not sure I understand. I don't do Facebook and everything. So a local business supports LGBTQ, and they are now not getting the support from the rest of the people in the community. Is that the essence of what you're saying?
So what happened? So it's Main Street Pastries. So Main Street Pastries, next to the convenience store on Main Street. It's right, where Honey Farm, Richdale convenience store. There's Main Street.
Is that where Romaines is, in the same place?
No. Right across the street from the old town hall, right in the center of town. Right where
that new place. Oh, that's the new one.
Yeah, where
okay.
So she has a couple of employees who are part of the LGBTQ community, and through Pride Month, they were making like rainbow colored bagels and different pastries. And this, as the story says, the article that was written, somebody came into the store and asked her if she was gay, and she said she was not, and they said they didn't support the gay community and wasn't going to give her any business. And then apparently for like the next couple of weeks, she had people either approaching her, I don't know if it was in person or on the phone or what, but asking for refunds because she was supporting the gay community, which is sad and really a disgrace. So somebody on Facebook, I don't know if they shared that story. It was taken down because there were some negative comments, but then more comments were written, which I have read, and I shared some of them. And then we were brought up because someone had mentioned that we have a committee in town that's addressing this, but what I heard from the comments that I was reading is that they don't feel that there's enough emphasis on the gay community.
Okay.
And you know, I think it's important for people to understand that the scope of our work is to come up with a recommendation for the board. So they're not going to see immediate results from our committee's work.
That's true.
It's a work in progress. And that this is a priority to us. And I think it's important to get that message out. So
Yeah.
while, you know, we don't want to respond to every single social media post about our committee and come off with some defensive remark, I do think it's important to help people understand what our scope of work is in summary.
Well, thank you for sharing. I didn't know anything about that. I do think we do need to make sure people understand our scope of work and also understand what we're about. It's not just about race. And I think that's one of the things that people immediately think about when you say diversity, and they go, you know, maybe some people feel the same way about race or gender, whatever. So we got our work cut out for us, is what it's telling us, whether we did the survey or not. You know, that kind of behavior wouldn't show up in the survey, but we wouldn't think it exists here in Northborough, but it does. Sad.
That's really interesting what they were saying about the survey as well, because what struck me most about the survey was the breadth of things that came up. I mean, people were talking about diversity in terms of their political beliefs, and they, you know, there was so much that came out of the survey that to think that it was just about race is just inaccurate.
So I don't know how much time you guys have. I don't want to read all of it, but I can share a glimpse into this Facebook post if you guys have a couple more minutes tonight and are interested in hearing. Would that be helpful?
And there were posts on the Northborough Community Group page, All Things Northborough Facebook page, and I didn't see anything about the Diversity Inclusion Committee, but it seems like it was brought up in your group. But if we do have a response now, do we go forth and do it on every one of those pages as well?
What other pages were they?
It's the Northborough Community Group Facebook page and the All Things Northborough Facebook page. And it was brought up in both those pages as well.
That's a good question.
Yeah, because
So I just want to jump in real quick. So a couple things. Mary, I think instead of you reading, I think it would be great if you could just email what you sent to Tim and Miriam and I to the whole group, just so they can see what you sent us and get an idea of what is out there. And I think that the second thing I would say is that I don't necessarily think it is a good idea for us to post on social media pages, particularly in a reactive way, only because in my experience, when you start to post on a page, you create the expectation that you will continue to interact in that medium. And it's not that I don't think that social media is an appropriate medium for us to do our work. I just think that, you know, we've talked about developing our own page where we can put our own, put up our own information. I would rather put our focus there and push out our positive information instead of trying to constantly react to the negative stuff that's out there. I just think that's a better use of our time and energy. And the other thing that I want to say is this, to me, highlights the incredible importance of having an open listening session. I think it's definitely time for us to set a date, do a little bit of marketing, let people know, like, here we are, this is what we've been doing. I think it makes sense to do it after we report to the board, because they should be the first to hear from us because we are their committee. And then once that happens, set a listening session for the public. And we can put some stuff out about what we've been doing ahead of that listening session so people can review and then give everybody an opportunity to come in. And this would be a chance for perhaps that business owner to come in and tell us her story, and or other members that are on these Facebook pages, if they have thoughts about things that they feel like we are not addressing, or should address more, or have, stories that they want to tell us, things that they've experienced. I just don't, I would
I agree with you,
caution-
Becca.
I would caution everybody against, just because social media, if it starts to unravel, it'll be difficult for us to keep up with. And I don't want to put that kind of pressure on our committee. We have enough work to do.
I also think we don't want to
wholeheartedly
be
agree.
defensive. We don't want to appear to be defensive.
Right.
And we have our goals, our mission, and our strategy, and I think we should stick with it. But I think this is important information to help us in forming what we're going to do. So I'd love to have you share that with us, Mary, and we take a look at it, and let's have an open discussion and make sure that the journey that we're on is inclusive.
I agree. Yeah, so
This is great. It is really great to know and to share, because we need to know what the temperature is outside, because some of us just don't know, and this will help us formulate our work.
Yeah, I agree. Lauren, how do you feel? You brought up the topic.
Yeah, I feel like I'm very glad that we discussed it. But I feel like reacting on social media is not the best course of action right now. And again, when we have our own social media accounts, then we can be presenting information regularly. So yeah, thank you for this discussion, everyone.
Right.
Thank you for bringing it up.
Can I just ask a question? I don't know if we haven't talked about this in detail, but in terms of the date for the listening session, are we all on the same page that we feel like after the summer is better, or do we think that it doesn't matter because we're remote? I'm just curious as we look to scheduling for August and September.
After Labor Day.
Yeah.
After Labor Day? Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think that we had determined that there was a holiday that on the date that we were going to do it.
Did we pick a date? I can't remember.
I think we said September 23rd, because September 16th, which is the second Thursday in September, is Yom Kippur. So we discussed potentially pushing it out. So the 23rd.
Okay, I'm gonna put a note in my calendar for that. Okay, great. That's all I got. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Shall I move to adjourn?
Sounds good. If nobody else has anything else to share, anybody have any other business to discuss?
All right, then I will move to adjourn.
Second.
All right. To a roll call, Hamilton Soriano,
Aye.
Becca Meekins,
Aye.
Virginia Sims George, Mary Leach,
Aye.
Theodore Writing,
Aye.
Lauren Bailey Jones,
Aye.
and I'm Mary Ibrahimi.